The night sky was silent, filled with broken stars and dust. A ruined colony lay across the barren land. Its towers shattered, its streets empty. Wind moved through the ruins, carrying the sound of silence like whispers from the dead. Dr. Elias Ward walked carefully through the rubble. He was not a soldier, not a hero, only a man of machines. He had come here searching for scraps of technology. Anything that could still work, anything that could be studied. But tonight he found something else, something that changed his life forever. At first he thought it was only a shadow hiding between broken walls. Then he heard it, a soft cry, weak and almost lost in the wind. His heart stopped, he turned, and his eyes caught the small figure. It was a child, but not human. The child was small, thin, with pale skin that glowed faintly in the moonlight. Her eyes were wide, silver in color, shimmering like liquid metal. She trembled as she saw him, holding her arms close to her chest, and around her neck there was a collar, metallic, glowing softly with strange alien light. Elias froze. He had seen many machines, many strange designs, but never this. The collar seemed alive, its surface shifting with codes and symbols. Every few seconds it pulsed, sending a faint hum into the air. The child whimpered as if the hum hurt her. Elias slowly lowered his tools, raising his hands to show he was not a threat. The child stepped back, almost stumbling. Her legs were weak. Her body looked tired, as if she had been running for days. Elias spoke gently. "It's okay. I will not hurt you." Of course she could not understand, but tone was stronger than words. The child blinked, confused, but she did not run. He moved closer, slowly, step by step. The collar flashed once, reacting to his movement. The light spread like veins across the metal surface, then faded again. It was not only a chain. Elias realized it was something more. Something watching, something listening. The air felt heavier as he approached. Finally, he knelt down, reaching into his pocket for a piece of ration bread. He held it out, his hand open. The child looked at it, then at him. Her lips trembled. Her silver eyes filled with hunger and fear. Slowly, very slowly, she reached forward and took the bread. When she bit into it, Elias noticed tears in her eyes. It was the first time she had tasted kindness. But then the collar reacted. It glowed red, a harsh burning light. The child cried out in pain, dropping the bread. Elias felt his blood turn cold. The collar punished her for eating. What kind of monster would build such a thing? He rushed forward, catching the child before she fell. Her body was trembling, her skin burning where the collar pressed. Elias touched the metal, but it shocked him instantly. The pain cut through his hand, forcing him to pull back. This was not a simple device. It was a prison, a weapon, and it was made for a child. The child looked up at him, her eyes pleading. Elias had seen fear before, but never like this. It was not the fear of a soldier or an enemy. It was the fear of someone innocent, someone helpless, and something deep inside him broke. He whispered, though she could not understand, "I will help you, I promise." The words meant nothing to her language, but the way he said them made her stop crying. She rested her head against his chest, weak, exhausted, and in that moment Elias Ward, the man who never wanted to be a hero, knew he had no choice. He would not leave her here, not in this cruel world, not with that cursed collar. But as he lifted the child into his arms, the collar pulsed again. This time Elias realized something. The device was not only hurting her, it was sending out signals, signals that reached into the stars. Someone somewhere knew she had been found, and they would be coming. Elias tightened his grip on the child, his heart racing. The ruins around him felt darker now, more dangerous. The night was no longer silent. It was alive with hidden threats. He had discovered something he was never meant to see, and as the child breathed weakly against him, the truth struck deep. This was not just a rescue. This was the beginning of a war he could not yet understand. And so, under the broken stars, the human and the alien child walked into the shadows together, one seeking safety, the other searching for hope. But above them, the collar glowed once more, whispering into the void, calling out to those who would not forgive, those who were already coming. Elias carried the child back to his hidden workshop, a place buried deep beneath the ruins. The door closed with a heavy sound, and the silence of the outside world faded. Inside, only the hum of old machines and the faint flicker of broken lights remained. He laid the alien child gently on a blanket, her breathing weak but steady. Her silver eyes followed him, wide with fear, but now mixed with a fragile trust. Elias sat before her, his hands trembling slightly, His mind raced as he stared at the glowing collar. This was no ordinary piece of technology, it was alive in some way. A shifting code dancing across its surface. He had never seen anything like it. Not in human science, not in alien archives. The collar seemed to breathe with her, as if it was part of her body. When the child closed her eyes and tried to rest, Elias moved closer. He activated a small scanner. An old human device barely kept alive by his repairs. The screen flickered, showing streams of symbols, alien language, mixed with sharp pulses of energy. It was not a simple restraint. It was a system built to control, to punish and to watch. Elias leaned back, his chest heavy. He had spent years fixing machines, decoding broken tech. But this was different, this was cruel. Why would anyone place such a thing on a child? The thought burned in him, stronger than any fear. Hours passed as he worked, his eyes following the streams of code. He traced each line, each pulse, until slowly, the first layer opened. The collar's secrets began to reveal themselves. And the words he found made his heart tighten. Containment, punishment, property. The words flashed again and again in alien code, each one written with cold precision. Elias closed his eyes, shaking his head. This was not a tool of protection, it was a chain. The child was not seen as someone, but as something. Something owned. Something controlled. He looked at the child again. Her small frame curled under the blanket. Her chest rose and fell with each weak breath. No one should live this way. No one should wear a prison around their neck. Anger rose inside him, but he forced himself to stay calm. Anger would not break this code. Only patience would. Elias returned to his tools. Each time he pressed a key, the collar responded with a flicker. Sometimes it glowed blue, sometimes red. Every wrong move caused the child to whimper in her sleep. Elias cursed under his breath, his hands shaking. He realized the device was connected directly to her nerves. Every error caused her pain. Every mistake punished her. His chest ached as he watched her small face twist in discomfort. He whispered to himself, I must find another way. But deep down he knew there was no easy path. If he wanted to save her, he had to face the code, even if it meant causing pain for a moment. Even if it meant fighting a system older and stronger than him. The hours stretched into dawn. The broken sun rose outside, casting pale light through cracks in the roof. Inside the workshop, Elias's face was pale with exhaustion. But then something changed. The scanner showed a new word, a hidden layer he had unlocked by accident. Surveillance. Elias froze, his blood ran cold. This was not just a collar to punish and contain. It was also a transmitter. It was sending everything back. Every sound, every movement, every signal. Someone out there already knew where she was. Someone was listening right now. He looked around the workshop, suddenly feeling trapped. The walls seemed closer, the machines louder. Had they already found him? Would soldiers land at his door any moment? The thought shook him. But when his eyes returned to the child, the fear changed to resolve. She stirred, blinking her silver eyes open. For a moment she looked at him with confusion. Then with quiet hope he forced a small smile. Though his heart was heavy, he pointed to himself and said, Elias. The child tilted her head, whispering something soft in her own language. He could not understand, but he felt the meaning. She was giving him her name, Lyra. The sound of her voice made him pause. It was fragile, weak, but it was alive. She was not property, she was not livestock. She was a child with a name, with a soul. And Elias swore in that moment he would protect her no matter the cost. The collar glowed red again, warning, punishing her for speaking. She gasped and clutched her throat, tears welling in her eyes. Elias rushed to her side, holding her small hand. He whispered, No, don't cry, you are safe here. The words were simple, but she clung to his hand as if they carried all the meaning in the universe. He stared at the collar again, fury burning now. This was only the beginning. He had unlocked the first cracks, but there were deeper codes hidden, secrets buried in layers of cruelty. And if he was to free her, he would have to break them all. He would have to face the full weight of whatever power had built this prison. The night had brought him discovery, but the day brought him truth. This child was not only lost, she was hunted. The collar was not only a chain, it was a beacon, and Elias knew in his heart that soon the hunters would come, but still. He whispered again as she fell back into sleep. You are safe, Lyra. I will not let them take you. The collar pulsed once more. As if mocking him, its glow spread across the workshop. A silent warning, But Elias ignored it, his hands already reaching for new tools. The war between man and machine had begun, and it had started with the smallest crack in the code. The days passed slowly inside the hidden workshop. Elias tried to keep track of time, but each hour felt heavy, filled with quiet fear. The ruins above were silent, yet he could never shake the thought that someone was watching, listening, waiting, still. Within that silence, something unexpected grew. Between him and the child, a fragile bond began to form. Her name stayed in his mind. Lyra. Each time he whispered it, she turned her silver eyes toward him, a faint light flickering within them. She did not know his words, but she understood his tone. His care when he offered food, she accepted carefully, watching him with suspicion, but slowly, with less fear. And when she curled up to sleep, she did so closer to him each night. It was as if the shadows of fear that once surrounded her were breaking apart. Piece by piece, Elias was not used to this. He had lived years in silence, speaking only to machines. The galaxy had never been kind to men like him. But now, in the quiet of the workshop, he found himself talking more than ever. He spoke even though she could not understand. He explained the tools he used, the machines he built, the stars outside. Lyra listened with wide eyes, her head tilted like a curious child. Even if she did not understand the words, she understood the sound of kindness. One evening, Elias took apart a small broken drone. Its circuits sparked faintly, its wings cracked. He placed it on the table and looked at Lyra. She blinked, her small fingers twitching with curiosity. Elias smiled and slid the drone toward her. "See this," he said softly. "It cannot fly anymore. But maybe we can fix it." Lyra hesitated, then reached out, her fingers brushing the cool metal. Her eyes widened, and for the first time, Elias saw something new in her expression. Wonder together they worked. Elias guided her hands, showing her where to place wires, how to tighten screws. She followed clumsily, but with determination. Hours later, the little drone gave a faint whir, its broken wing shuddering but lifting slightly. Lyra gasped, her lips parting in silent joy. She looked at him, her silver eyes brighter than he had ever seen, and then she laughed. The sound was soft, fragile but pure. Elias froze, the warmth of her laugh sinking into his chest. But in the next moment, the collar responded. It glowed red, brighter than ever. Lyra cried out, clutching her throat as the cruel device tightened, punishing her joy. Her laugh turned into a scream. Her small body trembling, Elias grabbed her, shouting, "Stop! Leave her alone!" Though he knew the collar could not hear, his hands tried to pry the metal apart. But it burned him, sending sharp shocks into his skin. Still he held on, desperate, refusing to let go. Finally, the glow faded. The punishment stopped. Lyra collapsed against him, tears streaming down her pale face. Elias held her close, his chest aching. How could any law, any government call this justice? How could happiness be punished? He rocked her gently, whispering, "It's okay. It's okay." Though his voice trembled with anger, her small hands clung to his shirt, gripping tightly as if letting go meant death. In that moment, something inside Elias hardened. This was no longer just about decoding a machine. This was about protecting her soul, her right to live without fear. He would fight for that even if it cost him everything. The next morning he tried something new. He drew simple shapes on a piece of old paper. A circle, a star, a line. He pointed and said the words slowly. Circle, star, line. Lyra tilted her head, then touched the circle, repeating something in her own soft tongue. Her voice was shaky but alive. She was learning, and so was he. Each day they shared more, pieces of language crossing the barrier between their worlds. One night as he watched her sleep, Elias thought about the galaxy. He thought about the galactic law that had labeled her people as property. He thought about the word livestock written in code, cold and merciless. And he thought about the way Lyra had laughed, just once before the collar took it away. His fist tightened, his jaw clenched. He could not let her live and die as a prisoner of silence. He would not let her be erased, but fear lingered. The collar was not only a chain, it was a beacon. Every day it pulsed, every day it sent signals. He did not know how much time they had before someone followed the signal to his door. But he knew this, time was running out, and still, when he looked at her sleeping peacefully for the first time, her hand curled around the small broken drone they had fixed together. He whispered, "We will make it, Lyra." Because humans were stubborn, and in the face of impossible odds they refused to let go of hope. The bond between man and child was growing stronger. It was fragile, built on fear, kindness, and stolen moments of joy, but it was real. And in the darkness of the galaxy, sometimes even the smallest bond could spark a fire that burned against the void. The nights grew longer in the hidden workshop. Elias barely slept, his eyes fixed on the shifting glow of the collar. Every time it pulsed, he felt a chill run through him. It was alive in a way that made his skin crawl, whispering codes he had never seen before. He knew it was more than a chain, more than a transmitter. It was a key to something forbidden, something buried deep in the heart of the galaxy. Lyra sat near him, her small hands tracing lines on the dusty floor. She had begun to smile more soft, fragile smiles. But every time she laughed, every time she showed happiness, the collar punished her. Her tears broke Elias each time, yet they also gave him strength. He would not allow this machine to define her life. He would tear its secrets apart piece by piece one evening. As the broken moonlight leaked into the workshop, Elias made progress. He had traced a hidden pathway in the code, a buried command that the collar tried to hide. His scanner flickered, showing lines of alien script. Cold and precise, Elias translated them slowly. Carefully, the words formed, and as they did, his heart grew heavy. Classified species, non-sentient, livestock. Elias's hand froze above the console. His breath caught in his throat. He read the words again and again. Unable to believe, the Galactic Authority. The rulers of the stars had declared her kind not people, but animals, not citizens, not children, not lives, only resources to be owned and used. The collar was not punishment alone, it was proof of ownership. She was not seen as Lyra, not as a child. She was seen as property. Elias looked at her, curled on the blanket with the broken drone in her hands, her silver eyes closed, her chest rising softly as she slept. The thought struck him like fire. If the Authority found her here, they would not ask questions. They would drag her away like stolen cargo, and they would kill him for daring to care. His stomach twisted with rage, his mind burned with disbelief. How many children wore collars like this? How many voices had been silenced by a law written in bloodless words? Humans had fought for centuries to be free, to be seen as more than tools, and now here, in the heart of the galaxy, history was repeating. He leaned forward, staring at the code. There were layers upon layers of locks, commands buried like traps. He pushed deeper, and the scanner flashed warnings. Unauthorized access, penalty protocol activated. The collar glowed suddenly, red light spilling across the room. Lyra gasped in her sleep, her body twitching in pain. Elias cursed, his fingers flying over the console, shutting down the sequence. The light dimmed, the punishment stopped. Lyra whimpered, rolling onto her side. Weak but breathing, Elias's chest pounded, sweat running down his face. The device was fighting him. It was not just metal and code. It was a weapon designed to resist anyone who tried to break it. But he would not stop. He could not stop. The next day, Elias left the workshop for the ruins above. He searched through old wrecks, broken ships, shattered towers. He found scraps of alien tech, fragments of data cores, anything that might help him decode the forbidden system. When he returned, Lyra was waiting at the door, her small hands clutching the drone. She smiled faintly when she saw him, her silver eyes bright despite the collar's cruel glow. That smile alone was enough to make his burden lighter. That night, he connected one of the alien fragments to his console. The screen flickered, symbols spilling across in a wave of light. Hidden commands unlocked, codes that spoke of trade routes, of laws, of records. And then he saw it, a document buried deep within the data, a decree stamped with the seal of the Galactic Authority. The words were clear, undeniable, the species hereby designated as livestock, devoid of rights or citizenship, property of the Authority. Any human or alien who interferes shall be punished by death. Elias's hands shook as he read. It was not only Lyra. It was her entire kind, children, mothers, families, all chained, all silenced. A whole people erased with a signature. A whole race reduced to shadows. He closed his eyes, anger and sorrow clashing inside him. He had never been a soldier, never been a leader. But at this moment he felt the weight of something far greater. The galaxy had declared war on innocence itself, and standing in his workshop with a child asleep in his care, he knew he could not stand aside. Lyra stirred in her sleep, whispering softly in her alien tongue. Her voice was fragile, but it carried hope. Elias sat beside her. His hand brushing lightly over her small fingers, he whispered, "They will not take you? Not while I still breathe." She could not understand, but she relaxed, her grip softening. The bond between them grew stronger, even as danger pressed closer. Outside, the collar pulsed again. The red light spread, sending signals into the night sky. Somewhere far away, machines listened, soldiers prepared. The beacon had been lit, and the hunters were on their way. But Elias no longer cared about fear. He had uncovered the forbidden truth, and now he had something stronger than fear. He had a reason to fight. The workshop was no longer quiet. The hum of machines filled the air as Elias worked without rest. Metal scraps and wires lay scattered across the floor. Screens flickered with half-finished codes, warnings flashing in red. And at the center of it all, Elias bent over his tools, his hands trembling but steady. He was building something new, something that might give Lyra a chance. The collar still glowed around her neck. Every pulse a cruel reminder that time was running out. Elias had studied it for days, peeling back its secrets layer by layer. He could not remove it, not yet. But he had an idea. If he could create a small life support system, something to mimic the collar's function without its cruelty, then maybe, just maybe, he could replace it. Maybe he could free her. Lyra watched him from the corner, her silver eyes wide. She no longer cried as much, though fear still lingered in her gaze. Sometimes she tried to help, handing him tools with her small hands. Other times she simply sat with the broken drone in her lap. The little machine had become her comfort, a symbol of their bond. Each time it whirred faintly, she smiled, and Elias's heart ached, because he knew the collar hated her smiles. He worked through the night. His hands bled from sharp metal edges, his eyes burned from lack of sleep. But he did not stop. Every tick of the collar, every pulse of red light, reminded him that failure meant her death. He whispered to himself, "Stay alive just a little longer, Lyra, just a little longer." And she, though she did not understand, would sometimes place her small hand on his arm. Her touch was weak, but it was enough to keep him moving. One evening, as Elias adjusted a circuit, the scanner beeped sharply. A signal had reached the edge of the system. Galactic patrols were scanning, searching, hunting. His blood ran cold. They were getting closer. He shut off the lights, pulling Lyra into the shadows. Together they sat, in silence as the faint hum of ships passed above the ruins. The sound faded, but Elias knew it was only the beginning. The silent war had already started. He returned to his work with even more urgency. Every sound outside felt like a countdown. He installed energy cells, connected wires, programmed systems. Slowly the device began to take shape. A small collar-shaped ring, but different. One built not to punish, but to protect. If he could make it strong enough, he could replace the original without killing her. At least, that was his hope. Lyra sat beside him as he tested the prototype. It sparked, hissed, and almost burned out in his hands. She flinched, clutching her drone tightly. Elias sighed, frustrated, but forced a smile for her. He whispered, "Not yet, but we're getting there." She tilted her head as if she understood, and for a moment her faint smile gave him strength again, but the collar was not silent. Each day it grew more aggressive, punishing her more often, sometimes for speaking, sometimes for laughing, sometimes for nothing at all. Her small body shook under its weight, her cries tearing into Elias's chest. He held her through it, whispering promises he was desperate to keep. He hated the sound of her pain, but it also sharpened his resolve. He would not let the machine win. One night, the patrols came closer. Elias heard the distant sound of boots crunching on rubble. Voices in a language he did not recognize echoed faintly through the ruins. He froze, holding Lyra close. The collar pulsed red, as if it too knew the hunters had arrived. Elias's heart pounded. He turned off every machine, plunging the workshop into silence. The soldiers searched above, their lights cutting through the dark, but they did not find the entrance, not yet. After they left, Elias sat in the dark, his arms around Lyra. She looked up at him with frightened eyes, and in that silence he understood something. This was no longer just about freeing her. This was about defiance. The authority believed they could erase her kind, declare them nothing. But here she was, alive, breathing, a child with a name. And as long as she lived, the authority's lie was broken. He returned to his work with new fire. Every strike of his tools felt like a weapon. Every spark of the machine felt like rebellion. The prototype collar began to glow faintly, a soft blue light instead of cruel red. It was weak, unstable, but it was hope made real, he whispered to Lyra. Almost there. She reached out, touching the blue light with trembling fingers, and for the first time, the glow did not hurt her. It warmed her skin instead. Elias's chest tightened with emotion. This was only the beginning, but it was proof that the authority could be beaten, proof that kindness could rewrite cruelty. He knew the patrols would return, stronger, closer, but he also knew this: he would be ready. The silent war was no longer silent in his heart. It was burning, and it would not stop until she was free. The workshop was heavy with silence. Machines stood still, wires hung loose, tools scattered across the floor. Elias sat hunched over the scanner, his eyes bloodshot, his hands shaking from exhaustion. For days he had worked, peeling away layer after layer of the collar's code. Each lock he broke led only to another, hidden deeper, sharper, crueler. But now, finally, he had reached the core. Lyra slept on the blanket nearby, her small chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. Her skin looked paler than before, her silver eyes dimmer whenever she opened them. The collar glowed faintly with every breath she took, and Elias knew the truth was waiting inside. He pressed the last sequence into the scanner, and the collar's heart revealed itself. The screen flickered, filling with streams of alien text. Elias translated slowly, and as the words appeared, his stomach twisted. Energy conversion active. Vital essence drain in progress. Transfer to central network continuous. His hand froze, the tool slipping from his fingers. The collar was not only a chain, not only a beacon, it was feeding on her life. Every smile, every laugh, every moment of joy made it stronger. Her body was nothing more than fuel for the system. She was dying. Not from sickness, but from the collar itself. Elias staggered back, pressing his hand to his mouth. The weight of the truth crushed him. He had promised her safety, promised her freedom. But all this time, the device had been killing her slowly. Every moment they shared had been stolen from her. Her weakness was not from fear or hunger alone. It was from the machine devouring her. He turned to her, his chest burning with sorrow. She stirred in her sleep, whispering softly in her alien tongue. Her hands clutched the broken drone, as if even in dreams she sought comfort. Elias felt his heart shatter. How could he tell her? How could he explain that every laugh she gave him came with pain? That her life was slipping away each second? He sank to his knees beside her, his hand brushing her hair gently. Tears blurred his vision, falling onto the floor. He whispered, "I'm sorry, Lyra. I didn't know." She did not understand the words, but she stirred, pressing closer to his hand. Her small warmth against him broke him even more, because she trusted him, because she believed in him, and he was losing the battle. The next day, Elias worked with fury. Every strike of his tools was filled with rage. He rewired, recalibrated, redesigned the prototype again and again. It sparked, burned out, collapsed, but he kept building. His hands bled, his body trembled, but he refused to stop, because if he stopped, she would die, and he could not bear that. But the collar fought back. Every attempt to override the energy drain triggered defense systems. The red glow burned hotter. Lyra gasped, her body shaking. Elias held her tightly, whispering comfort as the machine punished her for his defiance. He cursed the authority, cursed their law, cursed their cruelty. How many children had already died this way? How many lives had been turned into silent fuel? The thought clawed at his mind, driving him deeper into rage and sorrow. One night, Lyra awoke with a weak cry. Her silver eyes were dull, her breath shallow. Elias rushed to her side, panic rising in his chest. She tried to smile, lifting the drone weakly toward him. The small machine sputtered, its wing twitching. She wanted to show him it still lived. Even as she was fading, Elias felt his throat tighten, his chest ache as though it would split. He hugged her gently, whispering, "Stay with me, please, don't go." She rested her head against his chest, her small hands clutching at his shirt. Her voice whispered in her tongue, soft, broken. He did not understand the words, but he understood the meaning. She was thanking him for food, for shelter, for care. Even as her life drained away, she thanked him, and it broke him completely. That night, Elias made a choice. He could no longer wait, no longer study slowly. If he did not act, she would not survive another sunrise. The risks did not matter anymore. He would tear the collar apart, even if it burned him, even if it killed him, because she deserved life, not chains. He prepared his tools, his prototype glowing faintly blue on the table. His hands shook as he set it beside the cruel red collar. The two devices seemed to face each other, one built for cruelty, one built for hope. Elias whispered, "Hold on, Lyra." She slept weakly, unaware of the storm gathering around her, and Elias, his heart heavy with sorrow and determination, placed his trembling hands on the machine. The heartbreak had reached its peak. The battle for her life was about to begin. The night was heavy, darker than any before. The ruins above were silent. But Elias could feel it. A storm was coming. The collar's signal had reached its masters. The hunters would arrive soon, and he had only one chance. Lyra lay weak on the blanket, her breath shallow, her silver eyes dim. The collar pulsed red, feeding on her life. Each glow was like a knife in Elias's chest. He knew he could not wait any longer. It was now or never. He set the blue prototype on the table, its soft light trembling like a candle. It was unstable, untested, but it was hope, and hope was enough. Elias prepared his tools. His hands shaking, the air was cold. Filled with the quiet hum of machines, he looked at Lyra and whispered, "You are not property, you are not livestock. You are free." She stirred weakly, her eyes opening just enough to meet his. She did not understand his words, but she felt the weight in them. Her small hand reached for his, fragile and trembling. Elias squeezed it gently, his heart breaking. He had promised her safety, and tonight he would keep that promise. He began the process, his scanner locked onto the collar. Unlocking the core sequence, the red glow flared violently, warning him to stop, but Elias pressed forward, his tools sparking as they tore into the code. The collar fought back, sending sharp shocks into his arms. Pain shot through him, but he gritted his teeth, refusing to let go. Lyra cried out as the device tightened. Elias held her steady with one hand while working with the other. "Stay with me, Lyra, stay with me," he whispered. Every second felt like an eternity. The machine burned his skin. Smoke rose from his gloves, but still he pushed deeper. Breaking lock after lock, finally he reached the failsafe, a line of alien code designed to destroy the host if tampered with. His chest tightened, his breath caught. If he failed, the collar would not only kill her, it might take him with her. But he had no choice, he whispered again, his voice trembling. "You deserve life, not chains." And then he triggered the override. The room exploded with light. The collar screamed with a sound like tearing metal. Red and blue sparks clashed, filling the air with heat. Elias cried out as the shock threw him back. His body slamming against the wall, pain tore through him. But he forced himself to crawl forward. The prototype glowed brighter. Locking onto the collar, forcing it open, Lyra gasped, her small body shaking violently. The collar tightened one last time, then cracked. The sound was sharp like the shatter of glass. And then, with a final flash, it broke apart. Falling to the floor in pieces, the red glow died, replaced by the soft hum of the blue prototype. Elias stared, his chest heaving, his vision blurred. It was over. He reached for Lyra, pulling her close. Her breaths were still weak, but her chest rose steadily. Her silver eyes opened. Brighter than before, she looked at him, confusion and relief mixing together. Her lips moved, whispering a word in her language. He did not understand, but he knew what it meant. It was thank you. Elias's hands trembled as he brushed her hair back. Tears burned his eyes, falling freely. He whispered, "You are free now, Lyra. For the first time, the words were true, and for the first time, the galaxy felt different because even in its cruelty, one child had been saved, but outside the silence broke. The ground trembled with the sound of ships landing. The hunters had arrived following the beacon's last cry. Elias's heart pounded. He had freed her, but the fight was not over. It was only beginning. He stood, pulling Lyra into his arms. She clung to him weakly, her trust unbroken. Elias looked toward the sealed door, hearing the distant sound of boots. The authority was here to take her, but he would not let them. He was only one man. But humans had always been stubborn, and stubbornness had changed history before. He whispered, "We run, Lyra, and if they find us, I will fight." Her small head rested against his chest, her silver eyes closing in exhaustion. He stepped toward the shadows of the ruins. The collar lay broken on the floor, a silent reminder of defiance, and in his heart, Elias carried a fire no law could extinguish. The human had made his choice. He had chosen compassion over fear, defiance over obedience, life over silence. And as the soldiers drew closer, their weapons ready, their voices cold, Elias Ward tightened his grip on the alien child and whispered again, "You are free." Because sometimes, even against the galaxy itself, a single human choice could shake the stars.